Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday at 2 o'clock. So that means it's Fast Facts and Features with me, the brand ambassador for Ethical Flooring Ltd. And Kevin, it's the last Wednesday of the month and we are wrapping up. I don't think I should use that terminology because there's always education to be had, but wrapping up our conversation about hardwood floor 101 and the difference of a poorly made hardwood floor and what the installation can look like. Sure. Or go, and also what a good quality hardwood floor can be. And I alluded last time about what can happen to the lineup or the lining up with a poorly made hardwood floor. What can be an issue?
Oh boy, yeah, lots of things, lots and lots of things. So yeah, obviously a lot of things look really nice and beautiful when they're on the on the showroom panel or in the showroom floor, but the rubber meets the road, so to speak, when we start trying to actually put this floor into a house. And that's where some people will honestly ask me and say, well, what could go wrong with the manufacturing of a hardwood floor? And it's one of those topics that has so many answers, you almost are speechless for a little bit as you try and search for one, right?
Yes.
Like, well, here, let me go back over 20 years in my mind of things that have gone wrong with, hardwood floors and try to distill that into something that somebody can understand. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when we get to a job site and we start actually laying out the boards, we're pulling them out of the boxes and installers putting them on the floor, all sorts of funny things can be seen at that point. And one kind of high level category you could call it would be mismilling, or bad milling is also a common term that's used in the industry. And what that means is that the boards are just not cut perfectly square on the long end and especially on the short end. So a lot of manufacturers get it quite right when they're on what we call the long end of the board. So every board is rectangular in shape and there's a long end, and then there's the short end where the two short ends butt together. And you don't often see times or issues on the long side when you're fitting it together, though that does happen. But quite often on the short end where you have two boards butting together across the width of the plank, you can see all sorts of funny things go on there. And I think that's just an exceptionally hard part of the product to mill and to actually manufacture and to make it consistent, so you have a really nice clean visual look across every board. So right off the gate, that's definitely one thing that we notice is a lot of just imperfect milling on the butt ends. And no matter what we do to try and work with the floor, those gaps or those angled boards are going to be present in the floor.
Well, and if I just visualize that, if it's not quite tight, even if you thought you could cut it off to make it work, but if the design of that floor is to have like a nice little bevel all the way around on all four sides, that can't happen because you can't re-bevel on the job site.
No, exactly it. It's been beveled on all four sides. That's what people are looking for. And the products that we work with are pre-finished, so they've been stained and coated at the factory level. So yeah, it kind of is what it is, and it's just part of the journey to try and find on our end to find product that is up to the standard that our clients expect, and that is going to come out of the box looking good when we put it down, because there's really no job site manipulation that's available. So that's more of a minor visual thing, but we do definitely get into what we refer to as bowing, which I'm sure you've heard in your days gone by in the industry. Yep. So there's two types of bowing. There's the up and down bowing. So the floor will come out of the box as almost like a trampoline, like a spring. Boom. Quite often that can be dealt with and won't typically affect the floor. It may slow down the installer and they're going to be really unhappy with that. But quite often we can still get it in. It's not ideal, but again, we spread out the floor with adhesive. We put the bow into the adhesive. We weight it down with boxes of wood or with buckets of glue, and the adhesive will cure with the board and everything is fine. But a bigger issue is what we call side bow. So imagine we're looking at a board on end and it actually, instead of bowing up and down, it actually bows left to right. Basically a bit of a hockey stick, right? Like if you look down the length of a hockey stick, it could go, well, it'll turn.
Right.
Now trying to get that back to straight and to not ruin your lines. Again, it's a bit of a technical term, lines, but we're trying to run straight and perpendicular lines in the home. So the installer will lay that out beforehand. They'll plan where their lines are, what their first line is going to be, what it's going to look like when it hits, you know, a windows or a kitchen cabinet. You know, they plan this all out, and obviously we need really straight material in order to keep those lines. If you have boards that are turning into hockey sticks and are bowing out, obviously it's going to be impossible. It's going to be very difficult and or impossible to keep the lines running straight in the home. And you may end up, if you were looking down long spans or long runs of the home, you may end up looking at going, that doesn't look quite right.
This room is off for some reason. My eyes are like doing something wacky. So Kevin, what comes to mind right off the bat is what I quote unquote saved in my material. It's going to add in the cost of the installation, because if the installers have to go through every board, rack it out, find those boards that aren't well, haul that, put extra glue, put lots more weight, you know, that extra steps that don't normally happen when you have a good quality hardwood floor that just goes in lickety split, milled right, straight, that you could end up with a higher bill at the end where, yeah. So that's correct? Is my thought process correct there?
You are right. You know, there's different tiers of product that comes out of the box, and there's different levels of trying to deal with it in order to end up with a satisfactory result to the client. And yeah, no installer works for free. You know, every minute, every movement that they're doing costs money, and that's just the nature of the business, and they deserve every penny they get. So I don't begrudge them for that. They work very hard. But yeah, everything that they do, whether it's additional sorting through the wood or weighting things down, everything is going to potentially cost money. But you know, while you were describing that, one of the bigger, from our end of things, because we do typically work with higher quality floors, actually one of the advantages has been is when we recruit hardwood installers, and we try and recruit good ones, of course. Part of my sales pitch to them, so to speak, is that I say we work with nice quality wood, and that means more often than not, you're not going to have to fight to get the wood down and to get it, you know, the way that it should be looking. So you can imagine if you're an installer and you work for a company that sells low quality product, in every job and every floor, they're fighting with it, they're going through it, and they're trying to make it look good, and you know, that becomes mentally wearing and takes additional time. Whereas if, for instance, the installer works with, let's say, a Beau Franc product, which a Mirage or a vintage product, you know, virtually every time it just comes out of the box and it just locks together really nice. They're not fighting with it. Obviously, they're working faster, they're working with less stress, and they're happier in the end run. So yeah, part of our, you know, our call to when we recruit is that, yeah, we work with higher quality floors. And, you know, if you're used to working with poor quality product and fighting with it and cursing every job about, you know, you're not going to find that here, because you know, by and large, we're working with some of the best products in the industry. Now we do have builder grade products for those particular instances, but even then we're so selective with the brands that we carry that I simply won't sell a floor, and I won't hand off a floor to an installer that has known issues or the quality's not right, or I know they're going to have to fight with it. Like, I really feel for the installer side of things. You know, my dad was an installer. My whole family is tradespeople other than myself. So I'm not going to knowingly hand product to them that is going to make their life difficult. So,
and who wants to go fix somebody else's problem when you want to do your best work? We all want to do our best work on behalf of our customer or the homeowner, and to have to fight against somebody's lack of quality when it's at a manufacturer or at some place, it's like, that's not my job to fix your boo-boos. It's my job to make sure this goes in really well to to how I, love to my, my qualifications. So
Yeah.
let's wrap this up with two other words that come to mind that I remember is overwood and underwood. So explain what those two terminologies are, please.
Yeah, perfect. So that's a little bit more, again, that's a more detailed description of something that might fall under mismilling, which I talked about before. And so with overwood, what we're talking about, so now let's say we're looking at the plane or the flatness of the floor. The board should fit flat together. So when you run your hand across it, on the surface of the floor, it should be uniform, right? Now, an overwood situation is where one of the adjacent boards is actually thicker than the other in terms of the hardwood lamella layer. Usually, sometimes the core is off as well. So you'll get a bit of a speed bump or a hump as you go across there. Sometimes you might catch an edge as you're running your finger across it. Underwood would be the same thing, whereas one board is thinner than the standard or the remaining boards. So again, you're ending up with not a smooth flat surface. You're ending up with a textured height difference. And there is an industry allowable standard for that. It's quite small, but when we do see it, thankfully not so much anymore, but in my years past when we dealt with not such quality floors, this was a common thing. And some of the low quality manufacturers would say essentially, yeah, you got what you pay for. The standard is like a loonies thickness allowable difference between boards. And we would say, well, that's not acceptable to us. And they say, well, that's acceptable to us. So, and that's where we end up not selling those types of floors anymore, because who wants to put up with that?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a very common underwood, overwood, very common in the hardwood industry. And we could get into all the details on why that happens at the final sanding phase in the manufacturing line, but it's not important enough. But just to say that people don't want it, it's not what you paid for. And, part of your investment in a quality wood floors is that consistent milling in so many different ways of the plank. There's so many ways it can go wrong. So when you pay the money to get a quality brand name product, you're paying an assurance that it's going to be made right.
Absolutely. So this has been fascinating. Lots of great terminology that you as a consumer, I would say, go into the store and say, hey, one of your videos, you said something about overwood and underwood. And all the project managers at Ethical Flooring would know exactly what you're talking about and could answer any of your questions about this. So thank you so much, Kevin, for doing Engineered Hardwood Floor 101. We'd like to take this time to our American followers and wish them a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. Be safe and enjoy your families tomorrow. And we're just so grateful that you come along with us and learn as we teach you about a good quality hardwood floor, a good quality installation, and of course, working with the ethical team. So thank you so much, Kevin. And we will see you next Wednesday for another Fast Facts and Features with me, the brand ambassador for Ethical Flooring. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.